minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks. Thanks, Commissioner. I'm curious, Commissioner, are you aware of the privilege debate that took place in Parliament last night and this morning regarding 18 members of a parliamentary association that with an attempted hack of personal information?
I am not. No, I haven't been briefed on that yet, unfortunately.
Okay, so it's a very quickly developing situation, but we learned only a couple of months ago, because of an unsealed report from the Department of Justice compiled by the FBI in the United States, that in January of 2021 there was an attempt by a hostile foreign state actor connected with the communist dictatorship in Beijing that had attempted to infiltrate 18 parliamentarians' personal email accounts. I'm wondering, and I know you haven't had a chance to get into the debate that took place in Parliament, and I was hopeful, and certainly I've been at committee here, so we haven't been called to a vote. So I think that's a good sign that it passed unanimously to send that to Proc. But I'm wondering if you could maybe share some thoughts with this committee about how important that is, and if I could encourage you, not just when it comes to the protection of private information, when it comes to MPs being able to do their jobs, because obviously that's one part of it, but what I brought up in my speech last night was how important it is to ensure that Canadians feel protected and that appropriate responses are brought forward when there's attempts to use private information for nefarious purposes, whether that be diaspora communities that may be at odds with a government that they have a connection to. I'm wondering if you could provide any comments on that and share some thoughts with this committee.
Sure. Well, what this highlights, and I've issued a declaration last December with the UN Special Rapporteur on privacy and human rights, and I highlighted the link between the protection of privacy and other fundamental rights, and that includes democratic rights. And so protecting privacy, whether it's the privacy of members of Parliament, whether it's the privacy of voters and citizens, we can see that there overlaps with other sector. That's why it's so important to protect privacy for its own sake, but also because it supports and promotes other fundamental rights. And so that's an issue that's raised in this instance. I will certainly be interested to see where the parliamentary privilege question is a question for the House, of course, but certainly will be mindful and being briefed on it. There is proposed modification to the Elections Act vis-a-vis privacy obligations for political parties. So that's another example where you have some intersectionality with my office has a role to play, but there are other regulators, Canada Elections CEO. And so this is an area where I work very closely with other regulators where there are areas of overlap. And so we'll be following up.
So is informing whether it's parliamentarians in this case or whether it be informing the public. I know it was interesting as the debate was taking place last night, Premier Eby out of British Columbia had announced, and I happened to see the statement on Twitter, and of course it provided a link to a government of BC website, but is informing those affected and generally the public of what's going on a part of that process of making sure that privacy can be safeguarded?
If we're talking about privacy breaches generally in the private sector or public sector, one of the elements is that the organization would have to notify my office and would have to notify the affected individuals as early as possible. So that's part of the mechanisms to provide that information, and then mechanisms to take steps to protect and prevent and address it. So we have complaints underway with respect to privacy breaches, for instance, with the government's Geolocation Services, BGIS. We've launched an investigation vis-a-vis the Global Affairs privacy breach. So privacy breaches are something that we are concerned about. They're happening more and more, and we have a role to play in that.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner, and certainly I'd value if you have any. I'm basically out of time, but if there's any further feedback that you could provide this committee, and hopefully if you have a chance to send as proc, hopefully we'll be seized with this in the near future. I'd certainly encourage you to share your feelings and feedback there. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, yeah, thank you, Mr. Kirk.